So this is my Commodore build. I looked around a lot on the internet and couldn't really find anything that, well, I found a couple of videos, but nothing really was that in depth about what I needed to do. So after a little bit of trial and error, I kind of have the ideal thing that I want to build. You can copy me or put your own tweaks to it. It's going to be a bit weird because I wanted to save as much money as I could because I don't know if in the future I'll get a van or something. I just wanted something that has drawers and that I could sleep in and that I could still use my back seats. So I live in South Australia. I found a place called Born Again Pallets, and they sell this, which is 17 mil thick plywood, and it's 600 by 600. I bought about 8 of these to build the initial sort of structure. Right, so this is the back of my Commodore. There used to be a gas tank there. I took it out. I was originally going to just completely pull this up and put a level piece of plywood across, but honestly it doesn't matter too much to me because it's not that big of a deal. So the first thing you kind of want to do is you want to find how big you want your drawers to be. So the back of my Commodore is 1200 by 1330 about. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to have a drawer that goes the full length of this, and then I wanted to have a little space in the middle that I could store like longer things that I just needed to pull in and out, and I didn't want to have in a drawer system. And then I wanted an identical one drawer on the other side. So luckily the pieces of plywood I got, they were like $9 each for 600 by 600. So that's the perfect 1200 that I needed for the back of my car. So it worked out perfectly fine for me. If you go to Bunnings and buy a full sheet of 17 mil thick, or I think maybe it's 20 mil thick, I think it's 20 mil, they sell maybe one that's 2.4 by 1200. I might be wrong on that, but it's quite expensive. So I just looked around to find people who are recycling plywood, which I found luckily. So what I've done is I've gotten 2 600 length of ply. Now, because they were separate pieces, I had to put a stabilizer, but that works really well because when I have the drawer systems up like that together, this pit here is what my middle section will rest on. So it just worked out perfectly fine anyway. So you even if you get a whole sheet that's 1200 long, you will eventually probably need to get put these on anyway. I just measured off the lip of this chair. You can be higher or lower. Wasn't bothered that I didn't have an immense amount of space. The mattress I have is very thin. It's really comfy, so it just works perfectly fine. So to find this angle, I had to fuck around a bit. So whatever works for you to find the angle is the way you will do it. I used a little tool that you put in the corner and on the surface, and what it does is it gives you the perfect angle. So I use something like this, whatever the fuck you call it, and I put it just in the corner here. I found the length that I needed, the angle that I needed to cut this on. I used one of these. I found the angle that I needed for my chair to go up. and then I measured and cut it. Now, I'm cheating because I already have the piece that I cut out with. So all I need to do is find that line. You get something straight. I just use one of these. And that will give me the angle that when I slot it into my chair, it'll sit on that specific angle. Now your chairs may be straight up, so you won't need to cut an angle in this. You maybe don't want it to go all the way to the back of your chair, so you wouldn't have to cut an angle. I wanted it to fit in snug, so I have cut an angle into this. So that's my angle, and I wanted my drawers to be the height of it. I wanted it to be 320. I have this handy little tool called a chalk line. Probably many of you have heard of it. You just put it on the both lines, tap it down. It's buggered. So that's the height of my drawers, and that's the angle that it will slot into the back of it. So I've cut both of these pieces at the height, 320 and 320, and the length of both of them should be around 1200. So this, as it is, obviously won't work because it'll fall apart. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut strips of the 600, and you can cut them at, I cut mine at about 40 mil thickness. You can cut it whatever the fuck you want. If you have I need to do the bottom one to support this bracing together. If you have just a long piece, you don't have to do this. You can just do the top bit across. So just put a piece from here to here, whatever measurements you've got. I only have pieces at 600. So that's the length that I have to cut them at. So 600 and at 40. So I'm going to cut two of these, and then I'm going to glue them to this wood, and then pin them in. You can just use normal nails or screws, wood screws. If you don't have a pin gun, I assume you wouldn't. They're expensive, but I have one, so I'm going to use it. So I'm just going to run a bit of glue across the top of these, fit it in place. they're flush with the wood. One in there. Go to the other end, make sure that's flush. Probably easy with a clamp, but we don't do that in this house. And then we will proceed to do the bottom end. Right, so that one's done. Now you just repeat this process to all 4 of the drawers. What you want to do is make sure that, so you've got to make sure it's on the outside of the plywood, otherwise it'll mess with your drawer space in between here. So double check that this is on the outside of both, otherwise you'll have to redo the whole thing. So after they're dried, leave them for a day, let the wood dry so everything's in place and it won't fuck around later on. It's just leave it for the day. Then what you want to do is you want to find out how wide you want your drawers to be. I thought, yeah, 500 is a good length from either side. So 500 drawer space between each of them. Thought that was good, and that would give me like a bit over 200 in the center for like things I want to shove down the middle. Yeah, and that's completely up to you how you want it. This is always easy with 2 people, but I'm just hanging out myself. So after you have measured whatever distance you want for between the drawer space, if your drawers are just going to slide in and out, because if you don't want to spend money on drawer slides, you can always just put a thin piece of wood, piece of plywood, just put it along the inside of your drawers, and then a piece of velvet over the top of it, piece of felt over the top of it, and then your drawers will slide in and out really easy, and you won't have to spend money on high quality drawer slides. I already got drawer slides, it's easier for me and I wanted them. So with your 500 space, you got to remember that there's going to be a certain amount that the drawers will take up. So don't build your drawers before you have built the initial box, because you want to see how much space the drawer is going to take up, especially with the slides already installed. Then you know where about your drawers are going to sit and the rest of that. So what you want to do is you want to measure now the plywood from here to here, how long that will be. I have 2 separate pieces again because I bought plywood at 600 each. So what I've done is I've got one that's just going to sit along there. That is I've just kept the 600 because it all works perfectly. So I've just kept the 600 and I've shortened it one direction to 500, and then I'm just gonna drill it into place, and then I cut this other piece. Again, it's at 500 width wise, and length is like 460 because of the slope of my the back of my chair, so I had to cut it to here. So that was about like 460 left. And then all I did with this, I didn't glue it. You can glue it. I wanted to be able to take my drawers apart, so I'm just going to drill screws. I'm just going to screw into here. You can put as many little as you want. You can pre-drill your holes if you're worried about the plywood cracking. Plywood doesn't really crack that easily, I've found anyway. So I'm just going to drill in, and then I'll put the box in my car. Then make sure everything is completely flush with each other, because you don't want to be having any overhang. You want it all to fit perfectly together. So make sure it's flush. Everything's flush. There you go. That's one of the boxes in. The other one will sit beside it. There'll be a little gap in between. So once the other box is dried, then I'll put it together tomorrow, shove it in, and then we'll go on to making the drawers, and then we'll finish off the actual bed area for the back, so you can actually sleep on it.